Chrono Trigger is widely considered one of the greatest video games of all time, and now out of nowhere, Square Enix has ported it over to Steam. But with their track record and the initial reviews, it looks like when it comes to ports, Square Enix has refused to change. The legendary Chrono Trigger was originally released in 1995 and was crafted by some of the finest game creators of the time. The game wasn't initially a big hit in North America, but as years went on, a few ports come out, the game has gained quite the following. It's all for good reason. It's an absolutely great game, and it stands the test of time, especially when it comes to the storytelling, and the music is still spectacular. I'm not going to say, though, it's the best game of all time, though if you've ever had any interest in JRPGs, I can't recommend it more highly enough. And even with the game pretty much laying dormant and no sequels or spin-offs have been created in quite a long time, the fanbase is as passionate as ever. And I fully understand why they're angry and upset at this version coming out on Steam. It's an extremely lazy port by Square Enix. While there is a ton of bad, there is a little bit good here. All the content from the Nintendo DS version has been included here, and that's the version I recommend checking out if you want to experience Chrono Trigger for the first time and you can't get the SNES version. I don't recommend the PS1 version because of the load times that were added to the game that just end up making the experience more of a headache. The soundtrack is just as amazing as ever. Thankfully they didn't go back and try to redo all the tracks. The same goes for the story and gameplay. What made Chrono Trigger so amazing is still all here. It just has a really ugly coat of paint over it. The graphics are still the classic sprite work that we've known and loved for many years. Thankfully they didn't go back and change it like they did with Final Fantasy VI or the early Dragon Quest games. However, they mess it up in a different way by adding this really awful looking filter over everything. It brightens up the graphics and even changes some of the color schemes of the characters because of this. It also exposes the lines in a lot of the backgrounds and scenery, making them look downright ugly. Just having an option to turn this on or off would make a huge difference as far as a lot of people's opinion of the game. The font is also changed up. They use one I guess that would be easier to see on phones, but it just looks really bad here, though when I was playing it on my computer, it doesn't look quite as bad as I saw from screenshots. Speaking of options though, there are no options. You can't even change up the controls. The game works pretty well with an actual controller. Xbox One, PS4 all work perfectly fine and it's pretty much mapped well, except for a few buttons aren't mapped on the controller, and the only way to use them is by clicking on them on the screen. That's where the deal breaker for many is. This awful looking UI that basically is on the screen at all times. It's what was used on the mobile version to make it more accessible since it's all touch control, but here on PC it's unnecessary and just makes the game look worse. While I was playing it though, I wasn't hating it. I still love Chrono Trigger, so even a bad version of it is still relatively fun. I fully understand why someone wouldn't want this port over other versions they have already played or may already own. For me, one of the worst parts about this port is not just the laziness, but also the sneakiness on the Steam page. If you go there and look at the screenshots, none of them show any of the font in the game, and none of them show the UI at all. Now they do show the font and UI briefly in the trailer that's included on the Steam page, but they kind of mask it a bit by having a small version of the game footage and flashing through clips quickly so you can't quite see exactly what's wrong with what you're seeing. It would have been nice if they were just also upfront and honest about it being the phone port and the description of it here, so that way people knew right away. This version of Chrono Trigger is available now on Steam for $14.99. It's actually $5 more than the phone version of the game. There's no doubt about how lazy this port is. Just the fact they didn't even take out the phone references in the Spanish translation goes to show that. The game feels like a slap in the face to longtime fans and the legacy of the title. But at least the game runs. It still has a lot of what we love included in it, and even if it's not as beautiful as we remember, at least it still sounds pretty good. With that said, I'm going to be giving Chrono Trigger on Steam a 4 out of 10. But anyway guys, going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.